And once again, welcome you all here for Course in Miracles study group. We're on chapter 30, section 4, The Truth Behind Illusions. And in my book, it is on page 633. So I will start sharing my screen and start reading the first section. All right, the truth behind illusions. You will attack what does not satisfy, and thus you will not see you made it up. You always fight illusions, for the truth behind them is so lovely and so still in loving gentleness. Were you aware of it, you would forget defensiveness entirely and rush to its embrace. The truth could never be attacked, and this you knew when you made idols. They were made that this might be forgotten. You attack but false ideas, and never truthful ones. All idols are the false ideas you made to fill the gap you think arose between yourself and what is true. And you attack them for the things you think they represent. What lies beyond them cannot be attacked. The wearying, dissatisfying gods you made are blown-up children's toys. A child is frightened when a wooden head springs up as a closed box is opened suddenly, or when a soft and silent woolly bear begins to squeak as he takes hold of it. The rules he made for boxes and for bears have failed him and have broken his control of what surrounds him, and he is afraid because he thought the rules protected him. Now must he learn the boxes and the bears did not deceive him, broke no rules, nor mean his world is made of chaotic and unsafe. He was mistaken. He misunderstood what made him safe and thought that it had left. The gap that is not there is filled with toys in countless forms, and each one seems to break the rules you set for it. It never was the thing you thought. It must appear to break your rules for safety, since the rules were wrong. But you are not endangered. You can laugh at popping heads and squeaking toys, as does the child who learns they are no threat to him. Yet while he likes to play with them, he still perceives them as obeying rules he made for his enjoyment. So there still are rules that can seem to break and frighten him. Yet is he at the mercy of his toys, and can they represent a threat to him? Reality observes the laws of God, and not the rules you set. It is his laws that guarantee your safety. All illusions that you believe about yourself obey no laws. They seem to dance a little while according to the rules you set for them, but then they fall and cannot rise again. They are but toys, my child, so do not grieve for them. Their dancing never brought you joy, but neither were they things to frighten you, nor make you safe if they obeyed your rules. They must be neither cherished nor attacked, but merely looked upon as children's toys, without a single meaning of their own. See one in them, and you will see them all. See none in them, and they will touch you not. Appearances deceive because they are appearances and not reality. Dwell not on them in any form. They but obscure reality, and they bring fear because they hide the truth. Do not attack what you have made to let you be deceived, for thus you prove that you have been deceived. Attack has power to make illusions real. Yet what it makes is nothing. Who could be made fearful by a power that can have no real effects at all? What could it be but an illusion, making things appear like to itself? Look calmly at its toys and understand that they are idols, which but dance to vain desires. Give them not your worship, for they are not there. Yet this is equally forgotten in attack. God's Son needs no defense against his dreams. His idols do not threaten him at all. His one mistake is that he thinks them real. What can the power of illusions do? Appearances can but deceive the mind that wants to be deceived. And you can make a simple choice that will forever place you far beyond deception. You need not concern yourself with how this will be done. For this you cannot understand. But you will understand that mighty changes have been quickly brought about when you decide one very simple thing. You do not want whatever you believe an idol gives. For thus the Son of God declares that he is free of idols, and thus is he free. Salvation is a paradox indeed. What could it be except a happy dream? It asks you but that you forgive all things that no one ever did, to overlook what is not there, and not to look upon the unreal as reality. You are but asked to let your will be done, and seek no longer for the things you do not want. And you are asked to let yourself be free of all the dreams of what you never were, and seek no more to substitute the strength of idle wishes for the will of God. Here does the dream of separation start to fade and disappear, for here, the gap that is not there begins to be perceived without the toys of terror that you made. No more than this is asked. Be glad indeed, salvation asks so little, not so much. It asks for nothing in reality, and even in illusions, it but asks forgiveness be the substitute for fear. Such is the only rule for happy dreams. The gap is emptied of the toys of fear, and then its unreality is plain. Dreams are nothing. Dreams are for nothing, and the Son of God can have no need of them. They offer him no single thing that he could ever want. He is delivered from illusions by his will, and but restored to what he is. What could God's plan for his salvation be, except a means to give him to himself? Hello, Cynthia. Great to have you here. Good to have you too, Kelly. It's interesting. We were talking about something right before we started the reading, and I was kind of conveying it to relationships with my mother, with my children, and how, we always, as parents or as children, try to fix or control or change or keep from harm the people that we care about. But in truth, their path is their path. And all we can do is be love and choose forgiveness. And, as I was reading this passage, I was just thinking about how we've made those relationships real, right? Like those relationships with the people who are the closest to us. How difficult is that to see those relationships also as illusions, right? Because those are the ones that we see every day. Those are the ones that we interact with every day, or at least, more often than not. And to be able to be in those relationships without trying to control, right? Without holding grievances, and just completely be okay with whatever happens without having to have a judgment about it, right? To be able to look at it and say, okay, that's your path, and I can still be in my place of at one-ment with my source, which is the one mind of God, and I can still choose to see the Christ in you instead of the illusion that is creating this drama or creating this grievance or creating this situation that I'm opposed to or I have a judgment about that I feel might be a good idea or a bad idea or an idea that might hurt you, right? That I can just let it all go and say, I'm good with me, I'm good with my path, and I am here to see only the Christ in you, regardless of what you choose to do. And there's the work right there, right? Those special relationships that are in our life every single day, whether it's our children, whether it's our parents, whether it's our significant other or our caregivers or whatever situation we're in.
And when that happens, oh, somebody else could say.
No, please go ahead, Pam.
Okay. So I can get back to my train of thought. When that happens, what you're talking about, when we let go, we accept another's path as being fine for them and we don't have to interfere, even if it's just with worry and not even talked about. I've worried myself sick, so I can definitely tell the difference between when I was doing that, how I felt then, and how I feel now when I can say, I don't worry about you at all, in a nice way, in a wonderful gift to myself way. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a noticeable health difference. To just allow other people their process and their life and their choices and not taking it personally and not, well, I wrote in the book, I think it was paragraph 7, it says, salvation is a paradox indeed. What could it be? The very first sentence. What could it be except a happy dream? It asks you but that you forgive all things that no one ever did. I don't know. It's probably the whole sentence is profound. And I don't know when I wrote ha ha ha, but
I love that. I used to write people's names in there. This is this person. Oh, this is that person. Not realizing it was all me, just projecting it.
Sorry, I'm just a bit confused. Is it is the illusion is obviously not the love we have for them. The illusion is the problems, or sorry, I'm just struggling to understand that piece.
No. So the illusion really is making of them an idol, right? So if the love you have is a special love, a love that is because they are in turn doing something for you, right? They have somehow provided you happiness or a certain way of life or this, then therefore they are loved because they have performed this task that they agreed to do. That's kind of where you've created this idol that is just that part of the relationship for you. So you've created an idol and you're willing to sacrifice to the idol in order to keep whatever the idol is giving you. And most of us do that in our relationships, right? Until we reach a point where we know the truth of ourselves and we know that the power within us needs nothing from anything or anyone outside of us because all of our happiness, the grandeur of God is within us. And our only function is to share that with the world, right? So how could we ever need something from somebody else? And of course, when you have little kids running around and you've got a partnership situation and you're like, well, what are you talking about? I've got to raise these kids and somebody's got to pay the bills and I can't do it all by myself. I need this person in my life. Sure. Yes. You know, you need to facilitate the life. But it's when we make that person into an idol and start sacrificing ourselves in exchange for something from the other that we start getting into that tricky situation and we forget the truth behind the illusion, right? We forget that we've created this illusion and now we are buying into it and now we're no longer free. We're imprisoned by our illusions that we create. And it is an interesting process
Yeah.
to go through, because then all of a sudden, when you realize the truth, the conversations change, right? And the idol that you created is still looking for the cheerleader. And you can no longer be the cheerleader because you're no longer making that person an idol in your life. So now they're like, hey, what happened? Why am I not, why are you not my cheerleader anymore? And you're like, well, I've realized that you're not really an idol to me. And I have all of my sense of love and joy and self within myself, and then the dynamics start changing and the conversations get very real, right?
Mm.
But it's certainly a process. And it's, for me personally, it's one that unfolded over a period of time. And then I would replace one idol with another idol, and then another idol, and then another idol, until I was like, what am I doing? And it really is the point of being able to look at that significant other in your life and seeing the Christ in them, instead of seeing an idol that is an idol because they made a promise to deliver a certain sense of safety. If that makes sense. It's kind of like you're taking the reins and the stress off of the other person to provide you with happiness. It's like, no, it's not your job to provide me with happiness. It's not your job to fulfill me. It's my job to fulfill myself. And it's my job to create that happiness so I can share it with you. It's just a complete reversal of the way we've set up all of our relationships.
Mm.
Yeah, we're always looking like the little duck. Are you my mommy? Are you, But in truth, when we learn that all there is, that source is that which has our trust, our faith, and is all that safety, because it's communal support, basically, because God is not a single thing, it's all. And once we realize that and then recognize our part in that wholeness, then we can experience everything that this world has to give, because it's for us to have those experiences because we already feel safe and supported and we know who we are. So when you come from that versus always searching, always desperate to fill that hole that no single person can ever fill, because their role in this experience is to be an individuation and not a whole. They become whole by combining all those individuations, like a tapestry, or however else you want to see it, like a chorus of combining and melding everything into that one whole thing. But we experience all those parts, and we too are a part, but we're a part of that greatness. and not separated from it. And you can't feel that when you think you're separated from it, then you're always desperate to have it and lacking in the fact that you think you don't.
Well said, Mary. And even the tapestry you were talking about, integrating all the parts, that's not even something that we do or is our job to do. Our job is only to connect to the wholeness. And then the tapestry just fills it in. It's like a result of the connection.
Yes.
Because trying to connect it, thinking that that's our job, only adds to the madness.
Well, that's the beauty of it. And you use the word job or work a lot, and I tend not to, because it is not difficult. If you just allow a few basic things, the rest is all automatic. It just sweeps you up in its support and in its grandeur of the experience of it. And so it's not, you don't have to solve, you don't even have to know all those things intellectually. Trying to figure it all out just slows down the process. It's for us to have that intuition, that inner knowing.
Well said. Anybody else want to add to the discussion? Or have another point to make within this discussion or question?
I think everything we've been saying is that second sentence in that seventh paragraph of what we just read. It asks the only job. It asks you, but that you forgive all things that no one ever did, to overlook what is not there, and not to look upon the unreal as reality. I don't mind calling that a job. If that's my only job, I take it. Really?
Yeah, and like what we were talking about earlier, Pam, is that it just takes such a load off your shoulders. Like, I need do nothing. I really need do
Yeah.
nothing, but be focused on my responsibility of connecting to the one mind of God and
Yeah.
aligning with love. That's it. Over and over and over again. Align with love, align with love.
Like the light has come. I have forgiven the world.
Right.
That's you. That you don't have to. We don't have to make the light come, but we do have
Right.
to forgive the world and ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
And the thing we were talking about earlier about not worrying so much about someone else's path. Like we as individuations, we as separated selves cannot see the whole picture. And therefore we may think that our view of that other person's path is going to get them in trouble. And yet it may be that exact trouble as we are defining it that is their opportunity to see this light and choose to, embrace it and embody it. So we do what is ours to do, but you really only know that purely when you are coming from that wholeness where you are expanded and can see more of the picture. Otherwise, you just have to leave it up to that which is that wholeness and knows the entirety of the walk, if you will, of the path.
good
Yeah.
point, man. All right. Any other conversations? Or should we continue on? Okay, let's go. The only purpose. The real world is the state of mind in which the only purpose of the world is seen to be forgiveness. Fear is not its goal, for the escape from guilt becomes its aim. The value of forgiveness is perceived and takes the place of idols, which are sought no longer, for their gifts are not held dear. No rules are idly set, and no demands are made of anyone or anything to twist and fit into the dream of fear. Instead, there is a wish to understand all things created as they really are. And it is recognized that all things must be first forgiven and then understood. Here it is thought that understanding is acquired by attack. There it is clear that by attack is understanding lost. The folly of pursuing guilt as goal is fully recognized, and idols are not wanted there, for guilt is understood as the sole cause of pain in any form. No one is tempted by its vain appeal, for suffering and death have been perceived as things not wanted and not striven for. The possibility of freedom has been grasped and welcomed, and the means by which it can be gained can now be understood. The world becomes a place of hope, because its only purpose is to be a place where hope of happiness can be fulfilled. And no one stands outside this hope, because the world has been united in belief. The purpose of the world is one, which all must share, if hope be more than just a dream. Not yet is heaven quite remembered, for the purpose of forgiveness still remains. Yet everyone is certain he will go beyond forgiveness, and he but remains until it is made perfect in himself. He has no wish for anything but this, and fear has dropped away, because he is united in his purpose with himself. There is a hope of happiness in him so sure and constant, he can barely stay and wait a little longer, with his feet still touching earth. Yet is he glad to wait till every hand is joined, and every heart made ready to arise and go with him. For thus is he made ready for the step in which is all forgiveness left behind. The final step is God's, because it is but God who could create a perfect son and share his fatherhood with him. No one outside of heaven knows how this can be, for understanding this is heaven itself. Even the real world has a purpose, still beneath creation and eternity. But fear is gone, because its purpose is forgiveness, not idolatry. And so is heaven's Son prepared to be himself, and to remember that the Son of God knows everything his Father understands, and understands it perfectly with him. The real world still falls short of this, for this is God's own purpose, only his, and yet completely shared and perfectly fulfilled. The real world is a state in which the mind has learned how easily do idols go when they are still perceived, but wanted not. How willingly the mind can let them go when it has understood that idols are nothing and nowhere and are purposeless. For only then can guilt and sin be seen without a purpose and as meaningless. Thus is the real world's purpose gently brought into awareness to replace the goal of sin and guilt, and all that stood between your image of yourself and what you are. Forgiveness washes joyfully away. Yet God need not create his Son again, that what is his be given back to him. The gap between your brother and yourself was never there. And what the Son of God knew in creation, he must know again. When brothers join in purpose in the world of fear, they stand already at the edge of the real world. Perhaps they still look back and think they see an idol that they want. Yet has their path been surely set away from idols toward reality, For when they joined their hands, it was Christ's hand they took, and they will look on him whose hand they hold. The face of Christ is looked upon before the Father is remembered, for he must be unremembered till his Son has reached beyond forgiveness to the love of God. Yet is the love of Christ accepted first, and then will come the knowledge they are one. How light and easy is the step across the narrow boundaries of the world of fear when you have recognized whose hand you hold. Within your hand is everything you need to walk with perfect confidence away from fear forever, and to go straight on and quickly reach the gate of heaven itself. For he whose hand you hold was waiting but for you to join him. Now that you have come, would he delay in showing you the way that he must walk with you? His blessing lies on you as surely as his Father's love rests upon him. His gratitude to you is past your understanding, for you have enabled him to rise from chains and go with you together to his Father's house. An ancient hate is passing from the world, and with it goes all hatred and all fear. Look back no longer, for what lies ahead is all you ever wanted in your heart. Give up the world, but not to sacrifice. You never wanted it. What happiness have you sought here that did not bring you pain? What moment of content has not been bought at fearful price in coins of suffering? Joy has no cost. It is your sacred right, and what you pay for is not happiness. Be speeded on your way by honesty, and let not your experiences here deceive in retrospect. They were not free from bitter cost and joyless consequence. Do not look back except in honesty, and when an idol tempts you, think of this. There never was a time an idol brought you anything except the gift of guilt. Not one was bought except at cost of pain, nor was it ever paid by you alone. Be merciful unto your brother then, and do not choose an idol thoughtlessly, remembering that he will pay the cost as well as you. For he will be delayed when you look back, and you will not perceive whose loving hand you hold. Look forward then in confidence. Walk with a happy heart that beats in hope and does not pound in fear. The will of God forever lies in those whose hands are joined. Until they joined, they thought he was their enemy. But when they joined and shared a purpose, they were free to learn their will is one. And thus the will of God must reach to their awareness. Nor can they forget for long that it is but their own. Ah, that's beautiful. When we think of the idols that we created in our life, that we've got this agreement with to bring us some kind of happiness that for some reason is not inside of us. The goal is to see the Christ in them and join with that instead of the idol. Right? To see the Christ in our brother. Any thoughts about anything in that section? Anything coming up for anybody?
The way you worded it there now makes sense, because I was kind of struggling with how you wouldn't, love your kids, or how that was an illusion. But I see what you mean when you're idolizing what you want them to be rather than the Christ in them. That makes sense to me now.
Yeah. Sometimes they delay that second part because I think they want you to have that like conflict in your mind, like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? You know? And then you're waiting for like, this can't be real. This can't be right. And then you read the next section. It's like, oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that happens a lot through A Course in Miracles. They're not saying don't have a relationship. They're saying allow your special relationship to turn into a holy relationship by acknowledging the Christ in your brother. All right. So any other conversations about this section? All right, let's keep
Well,
going. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say something about that process you were talking about of seeing the Christ in our brothers. In our special relationships, I think how that happens for me is I notice when I'm not seeing the Christ in my brother because of some projected, my own guilt projected onto them. And then that's my cue. Oh, this is happening for me. Knowing that I'm not an innocent victim of what's happening out there. This is the projection that I have created, and I could see something differently. I could see what's really there. This is for my forgiveness. I forgive myself for having those judgments, but it's forgiveness for what never even happened. Bottom line, um, you know, but can be that process. You gotta know what's happening, and then it can be more immediate to just like, this is meaningless and unreal and nothing more. And then and in that the Christ is revealed. It's having to let go of our judgments first. But that's the
Yeah, that
gift.
was
That's
really
what we're here
powerful.
for.
Well said, Pam. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Pam, that was powerful. That was very well said. And to add to it, it's kind of like going to a movie where this world of illusion, not confusing that with meaninglessness. Because we go to a movie and we know that that movie isn't real, but that knowing that it's not real allows us to explore it very deeply. We can be any of the characters we want to be, and maybe more than one, as we're participating in that movie. Because we know when we get up out of our seats, we can go back to that which we call the real world. We can go back to our present situation, whatever that is. And so it's the same kind of illusion that we get to experience and play in here. It's just a matter of knowing where to put your trust, if you will, where your safety lies. And so then you can have a more full experience when you know that you're not a victim to this movie, if you will.
Yeah, good point, Mary. And to your point, Pam, like when I'm in those situations where I am feeling like I'm in a place of being hurt or wanting to judge, that is also an indication like, ooh, how am I not loving myself right now? How am I allowing myself to be less than complete and whole? And how am I allowing myself to feel dependent on someone else for my completion that isn't the one mind of God, right? Because it goes back to that. It's like if I'm feeling hurt, then I've forgotten who I am. I've thought of myself as small and little and less than. and therefore aligned with fear. So I'm automatically in that alignment with fear or the ego. And then I have a choice to make, right? So in this moment, I know I've aligned with fear and the ego. I can stop and I can choose to align with love or the one mind of God. And you're right, and it's those choices that we make throughout the day, all day long, with approximately 60,000 thoughts that we have, that then become our reality if we are conscious of those choices and we are aware that there is a choice to make.
Right.
Did you want to share something, Maynard?
I was just going to say that I remember a lesson talking about ideas behind what we project, and what we're seeing here, as I see it sometimes, is if I can get in touch with what the idea is behind what's going on. Is it judgment? Is it anger? And then I can change that idea, because all those ideas do, they just project something out. And if I can change it to love or forgiveness, then there's a new image that's projected.
Yeah, exactly. All right, shall we keep going, or is there more conversation around this? Great conversations, everyone. All right, let's keep going. Oh, here we go. The justification for forgiveness. Anger is never justified. Attack has no foundation. It is here escape from fear begins and will be made complete. Here is the real world given in exchange for dreams of terror. For it is only this forgiveness rests. Only on this forgiveness rests and is but natural. You are not asked to offer pardon where attack is due and would be justified. For that would mean that you forgive a sin by overlooking what is really there. This is not pardon, for it would assume that by responding in a way which is not justified, your pardon will become the answer to attack that has been made, and thus is pardon inappropriate by being granted where it is not due. Pardon is always justified. It has a sure foundation. You do not forgive the unforgivable, nor overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. Salvation does not lie in being asked to make unnatural responses, which are inappropriate to what is real. Instead, it merely asks that you respond appropriately to what is not real by not perceiving what has not occurred. If pardon were unjustified, you would be asked to sacrifice your rights when you return forgiveness for attack. But you are merely asked to see forgiveness as the natural reaction to distress that rests on error and thus calls for help. Forgiveness is the only sane response. It keeps your rights from being sacrificed. This understanding is the only change that lets the real world rise to take the place of dreams of terror. Fear cannot arise unless attack is justified. And if it had a real foundation, pardon would have none. The real world is achieved when you perceive the basis of forgiveness is quite real and fully justified. While you regard it as a gift unwarranted, it must uphold the guilt you would forgive. Unjustified forgiveness is attack. And this is all the world can ever give. It pardons sinners sometimes, but remains aware that they have sinned. And so they do not merit the forgiveness that it gives. This is the false forgiveness which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive. And recognizing God is just, it seems impossible his pardon could be real. Thus is the fear of God the sure result of seeing pardon as unmerited. No one who sees himself as guilty can avoid the fear of God, but he is saved from this dilemma if he can forgive. The mind must think of its creator as it looks upon itself. If you can see your brother merits pardon, you have learned forgiveness is your right as much as his. Nor will you think that God intends for you a fearful judgment that your brother does not merit. For it is the truth that you can merit neither more nor less than he. Forgiveness recognized as merited will heal. It gives the miracle its strength to overlook illusions. This is how you learn that you must be forgiven too. There can be no appearance that cannot be overlooked. For if there were, it would be necessary first there be some sin that stands beyond forgiveness. There would be an error that is more than a mistake, a special form of error that remains unchangeable, eternal, and beyond correction or escape. There would be one mistake that had the power to undo creation and to make a world that could replace it and destroy the will of God. Only if this were possible could there be some appearances that could withstand the miracle and not be healed by it. There is no surer proof idolatry is what you wish than a belief there are some forms of sickness and of joylessness forgiveness cannot heal. This means that you prefer to keep some idols and are not prepared, as yet, to let all idols go. And thus you think that some appearances are real and not appearances at all. Be not deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief that some appearances are harder to look past than others are. It always means you think forgiveness must be limited, and you have set a goal of partial pardon and a limited escape from guilt for you. What can this be except a false forgiveness of yourself and everyone who seems to be apart from you? It must be true the miracle can heal all forms of sickness, or it cannot heal. Its purpose cannot be to judge which forms are real and which appearances are true. If one appearance must remain apart from healing, one illusion must be part of truth. And you could not escape all guilt, but only some of it. You must forgive God's Son entirely, or you will keep an image of yourself that is not whole, and will remain afraid to look within and find escape from every idol there. Salvation rests on faith. There cannot be some forms of guilt that you cannot forgive. And so there cannot be appearances that have replaced the truth about God's Son. Look on your brother with the willingness to see him as he is, and do not keep a part of him outside your willingness that he be healed. To heal is to make whole, and what is whole can have no missing parts that have been kept outside. Forgiveness rests on recognizing this and being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness which the miracle must lack the power to heal. God's Son is perfect, or he cannot be God's Son. Nor will you know him if you think he does not merit the escape from guilt and all its consequences and its forms. There is no way to think of him but this, if you would know the truth about yourself. I thank you, Father, for your perfect Son, and in his glory will I see my own. Here is the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the will of God. The glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded by your wish to make illusions real. And what is this except a simple statement of the truth? Look on your brother with this hope in you, and you will understand he could not make an error that could change the truth in him. It is not difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects. But what you see as having power to make an idol of the Son of God, you will not pardon. For he has become to you a graven image and a sign of death. Is this your Savior? Is his Father wrong about his Son? Or have you been deceived in him who has been given you to heal for your salvation and deliverance? Ah,
That little two-line prayer is a challenge. I thank you, Father, for your perfect Son, and in his glory will I see my own. And to say that about someone that you don't think is perfect, that's a challenge.
yeah. And I think too, to say that also means that you need to see the Christ in him, right? Not looking at his errors and the things that he's done and the things that you would judge him for, right? Connecting to that one mind of God within him.
Mhm. And as that occurs, you then have a different image of him that comes into your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Some people that I have experienced as harsh begin to look more gentle and more I don't know what other word to use, but they're just more gentle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when you've practiced that, have you noticed that the interaction between the two of you then changes?
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's people that I may not have actual physical interaction with, but that for some reason I am attached to them, and I'm trying to work on my perception of them apart from the ability to actually interact with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, especially if you're talking about something you've seen in the news or on social media or, something like that. Is that
Right.
what we're talking about?
Yeah, that could be
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also understanding the purpose, right, of social media and the news. I mean, the purpose is to incite and engender fear because fear sells and it makes people buy things so they can feel safe.
Mhm.
So when you're consuming things like that, just remember that it's not the truth. It's oftentimes swayed in a way to make you feel fearful so that then their marketing is to then make you feel like I'm afraid. I need to buy this, this, and this, and this to make myself feel better or to feel safer or to feel whatever it is, right? So there's definitely an agenda when you're watching things like the news, which has now become really more fear-mongering entertainment than actual news. And a lot of social media, right? Because people will put stuff out there because it increases their algorithms. And they know it's not true. And they don't care. They just want their algorithms increased so that they get more views, so that they can make money. Right?
And another part of this is people from the past who have passed away, but I still have feelings of anger and resentment for things that were done, and it's a matter there of changing that too, and seeing the Christ in someone who supposedly is not alive today, but there's no way to interact with them, physically, but I'm still interacting with them in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I need to see even people who have passed away, to see the Christ in them.
Right. And I think I've shared this with you. I had a very similar experience with my mother, which I talk about quite often here. She, she was an alcoholic and she did better than her mother for sure. But there was still a lot of things that were not great in my childhood that I was trying to forgive her for. And in my mind, and being a member of the Course in Miracles, not member, but a student teacher of Course in Miracles, I could justify why I would forgive her, right? She did the best she could with what she had. She had a rough life, all the things. It wasn't until I experienced empathy, true empathy, that I was able to truly forgive her. And that was done through a therapist who facilitated a past life regression, which never really happened for me in the way that I thought it would happen. I went with my daughter thinking, oh, let's do this fun entertainment, past life regression and see what our relationship was in their lives. And I thought that's why I was there, was to see, well, my daughter was my sister, or maybe she was this other person in my life. But really, I went through this whole series of going into these rooms, and the therapist would say, what do you see? And I couldn't see anything. It was just gray. And, I could see some movement in the side of the walls, but I just felt like I was in this gray cave every time. Finally, the 45 minutes was almost up. And the therapist said, I'm going to do this one more time. Let's go into the last room. Don't tell me what you see. Who's with you? And all of a sudden, it was my mother. And she was sobbing, like uncontrollably sobbing. And she just kept saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, I could feel it. Like I could feel her pain and her remorse. And I could just feel it as if it was right in my heart. And I started crying, and I'm not a crier. I'm like, I'm like one of those, I got to get through this life and I'm, push the tears down and all the things. But in this moment, I couldn't help it. It was like a floodgate because I could feel her pain and her sorrow. And an apology, right, is so powerful, right? Talking about forgiveness, it was that apology, I'm so sorry, that just, and I was finally able to forgive her. And I can't even tell you the weight of the world that lifted off my shoulders that day. That's why I always talk about that Ho'oponopono prayer and how powerful that is whenever you're with anybody, whether you think you did something to them or not, because clearly my mother did a lot better than her mother. So in her mind, she was probably like, what are you talking about? I did a great job with you. Because in her own experience, it was way better than her mother had done. But in my experience, it wasn't great, right? But hearing her say, I'm sorry, was so healing for me. And I could have true empathy for her. And in that moment, I could fully forgive her because I felt her pain. And I knew that she really, it was all part of the illusion, right? And my growth and my expansion and my understanding and my needing her to be an idol for me, right?
Mm.
So I guess if you could somehow create a state where you could empathize with them, I would say that would be maybe the first part of being able to truly forgive.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think that's it. We don't understand why people do the things they do. And sometimes they say things that are hurtful. And until we're able to empathize with them, and I don't mean sympathize, that's different. Sympathize means you bring yourself to their place and you kind of like justify what they've done. It's not a justification. It's more having empathy for for what they have gone through. Did you want to add to that, Mary? I saw you unmuted yourself.
Nope, I didn't.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, forgiveness is tricky. And that Ho'oponopono prayer is powerful. And, just practice it with someone. Practice it with someone that you don't think would ever need your forgiveness, right?
Mhm.
And walk up to them and say, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And see what happens. You would be surprised at just how powerful that is when you just say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And they're going to probably look at you like, what are you sorry for? But at the same time, having that apology somehow has this really interesting effect on other people. And it might not even be you that they need to hear that apology from, but just receiving that apology is so healing on so many levels
Mm.
because people feel very wounded.
It allows them to be seen, heard, and validated all at the same time, which takes down their guard a little bit and opens them up
Yeah,
to
great.
receiving the gift that you may not even be giving, but you open them up to see it in the world.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Any other comments, shares before we close? All right. Thank you everyone for being here today. We had some great conversations. I saw a couple of people jumped off right at 1:30, so sorry for going over a minute. But thanks for being here. All right. And Cynthia and I are going to get together in a couple days. I'm excited about that.
Me too.
My new neighbor down here. All right, everyone have a great week and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Right.
Terry.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.
All right, bye.
Bye.